per year. And then on the last day, I didn't get up until 11:30. That's late even for me, knowing full well that the last few...
Tim Farriss, guys, you heard it here first. Maybe you heard it first on his channel. It'll be linked below. He got up at 11:30. Mr. Productivity himself. Guys, it's okay. Okay? It is okay. You're not a weak person if you sleep in time to time.
remaining friends were leaving about 30 minutes later, around 12 noon. And the sad reality is I was afraid of being alone. I was afraid of being lonely. So like a child, I hid my head under the covers, that's literally, and hit snooze until I just couldn't postpone reality any further. But why am I telling you this?
That's really cool that he admits to his own humanness. I think that's vulnerable. And loneliness is hard. You know, we all, I think we're pack animals to an extent. And so we really want to have a flourishing community of connections and just people around. It always feels better when people are around. Now, we need our creative time, but there's sometimes where we don't want that. Obviously, here was a moment of time in Tim's life.
Why am I being so self-indulgent and telling you this ridiculous story? It's because we all like to appear successful, a nebulous term at best, and the media like to portray certain standouts as superheroes, these people on the magazine covers and so on. And yes, sometimes these dramatic stories of overcoming the odds are super inspiring, but often, just as often, they lead to an unhealthy conclusion, maybe an inner monologue, which is something like, well, maybe they, whoever they happen to be, maybe they can do it because they're incredible, they have no faults, they're just karate chopping the day and winning at all moments, but I'm just a normal person. I can't do that. The reality is most superheroes, these superheroes, are nothing of the sort. They're just as weird and neurotic as we are. They're strange creatures who do big things despite...
Okay. This is huge. This should be absolutely massive for anyone listening to this who struggles with like, oh, I'm just not on all the time and I'm lazy and I'm unproductive. And this is incredible. He's unveiling the superhuman in the superhumans. He's going, yo, I have all this success. I've written all these books. I study this my whole life. But here I am showing you that I really am no different than you, and I have the same weakness in me. Now, this is really cool because it reminds you of Marcus Aurelius too. He wrote about this in Meditations where his own inner weakness was always a temptation. And so I think that the truth is that we don't, the weakness is always in us. The gutter mentality is always within us, but it's always choosing to discipline ourselves to not listen to that voice more often than not. And that the struggle never goes away, no matter how disciplined and how much advanced people seem to you in their success category. This is really cool. And so I love that he's honoring the struggle and honoring the humanness within us. And just going, you're no different than I. That's really important. That's really humbling for Tim. It's very humbling for Tim. You know, like 20 years ago, no one that was successful admitted to being human. They always wanted that superior status. And I think what people are doing is they've taken the Gary Vee tract and said, hey, show your vulnerability, put it out there, because that's what will make people relate to you and actually want you to succeed. And so you see the shift in human motivation and performance experts where they're really getting raw these days and going, here's all my weaknesses, I'm going to expose them. And I think that's really cool. I mean, I struggle I've been trying to do YouTube for over a year now. And I started with the Self-Elevate podcast, but creating original content was so hard, time consuming. And then there was no views. And I'm not saying that I just didn't have the motivation to stick up to it. It just didn't have the returns that I was expecting. And it was just pulling teeth. Now reaction videos, this is really fun for me. It's really easy for me. I can take someone's information and then just speak off the cuff and see what happens. And that to me is just, it works better for my DNA, who I am. And this is not like work anymore. It's actually incredibly fun. Anyway, let's keep following Tim's awesome video here.
Right. Lots of self-defeating habits and self-talk. Weird and neurotic as we are, they're strange creatures who do big things despite lots of self-defeating habits.
Let's re-listen.
They, whoever they happen to be, maybe they can do it because they're incredible, they have no fault. The media like to portray certain standouts as superheroes, these people on the magazine covers and so on. And yes, sometimes these dramatic stories of overcoming the odds are super inspiring, but often, just as often, they lead to an unhealthy conclusion, maybe an inner monologue, which is something like, well, maybe they, whoever they happen to be, maybe they can do it because they're incredible, they have no faults, they're just karate chopping the day and winning at all moments, but I'm just a normal person. I can't do that. The reality is most superheroes, these superheroes, are nothing of the sort. They're just as weird and neurotic as we are. They're strange creatures who do big things despite lots of self-defeating habits and self-talk. So personalize
Dang!
this. Let's bring it home. I am definitely no superhero. I'm not even a consistent normal, whatever that is. So let me give you a little laundry list. Not too long ago, I cried while watching Rudy on an airplane, and that was cause for concern for a lot of people around me.
I just watched Cars. You can ask my partner about this. I've never seen Cars in my life, the animated movie, and I bawled my eyes out. It's so good. It had so many good teaching moments. That's what TV and film should be, is stories like that.
Repeatedly hit snooze for 1 to 3 hours past watching Rudy on an airplane, and
Let's slow this down. He's getting interesting.
that was cause for concern for a lot of people around me. I repeatedly hit snooze for 1 to 3 hours past my planned wake time because I simply didn't want to face the day. I
Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged.
considered giving everything away, moving to Montreal, Seville, or Iceland. Location kind of
He wanted to pull the Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer did this. He sold his whole house and all of his 50 years of history, and he just had his clothes and a pair of sandals. And 10, 20 years later, I don't know, he was like, yeah, there's a part of me that wishes I didn't do that.
depends on what I'm trying to escape. I've used gentlemanly websites to relax during the day when clearly having other urgent and important shit to do. I wore the same pair of jeans for a week straight just to have a constant during weeks of chaos. So listening to all of that, you might
Jeans you can wear for a week. It's going to be okay for the most part, right?
think it seems
Maybe not a week, but a few days in a row. No big deal.
pretty
At least 2.
dysfunctional, right? I assume so. I certainly hear it that way. But around the same time, especially so the latter few weeks of that,
Well, dysfunctional compared to what we portray you as. We see you as this excellent person who never sleeps in, never has bad vices, never can't not get out of bed. This is cool, guys. Is this motivating or what? Am I the only nerd on the planet with muscles that this is really motivating to?
I also was able to increase my passive income 20%.
Ab check. They're there.
Bought my dream house. Got to the point where I was once again meditating twice per day for 20 minutes per session without fail. So not winning any gold medals in meditation, but incredibly helpful in stabilizing. I cut my caffeine intake to next to nothing. That usually means pu'er tea in the morning and maybe a green tea in the afternoon. I've had no more than 1 cup of really strong coffee per week. There's a lot to that, but suffice to say, much improved sleep. Signed one of the most exciting business deals of the last decade, including working on a collaboration that is first of its kind for me. Completely transformed my blood work, including a few biomarkers I've been working on for years. And I realized, as the next point, once again, that let's just call it manic depressive symptoms are just part of entrepreneurship. And last but not least, I have come to feel closer to all of my immediate family members. So where does that leave us? Personally, I suck at efficiency, which is doing things quickly or doing things super well, but I have a few tricks. So here is my coping mechanism. It is an 8-step process for maximizing efficacy, which is doing the right thing. Number 1, wake up at least in.
Do you guys already like Tim better? Does he just seem like he's not untouchable? And you're like, man, this guy struggles with the same things I struggle with. So, that's amazing. And so he has to do these exact same things that I need to improve on in their battle for him. So if he can get through that battle and he's just as human as I am, I can get through that battle too. And that's why we watch videos like this, because we need more people around us to remind us of what we can accomplish and not remind us of how terrible habits we have. Does that make sense? Like when I was growing up I was born in 86. I'm almost 40 years old, and I feel like the small town I was from was like 20 years older than the time that I was born. I mean, it was so small. And we just had our coaches in sports kick our ass. Like they would just not let us get away with anything. We could not be lazy. They yelled at us. And dude, they made us work. And thank God I had these people. We have Tim and other people to kick our ass back into shape. We need it. We have such weak minds, and so that's why we need a community of other men to kick our ass into shape. This is good.
An hour before you have to be at a computer screen. Email is the mind killer, so don't go immediately into reactive mode. Number 2, make a cup of tea. I like pu'er tea, and sit down with a pen or pencil and paper. I like to do it analog. Number 3, write down 3 to 5 things and no more
Kombucha, man. It's great.
that are making you most anxious or uncomfortable. They're often the things that have been punted from one day's to-do list.
Okay, right. Wake up an hour before you have to do anything, really. And take that time to just do absolutely nothing. The brain, okay, it's a lot like a computer, okay? We can restart a computer, and it's real quick, but I feel like when we go to bed, it's a full shutdown of the computer, and it takes a while to boot up, right? So give your mind, your computer, time to boot up in the morning before you start firing off tasks. I think that's important for Tim's calibration. It's important for my calibration. The last thing I need to do is rush out the door or feel rushed, and then I'm not fully booted up. So really great advice. This right here, let's keep going.
This to the next, to the next, to the next, and so on. And most important usually means most uncomfortable, or very frequently it does, with some chance of rejection or conflict. To find the most important, you can often just look for the most uncomfortable with some chance of rejection or conflict. So write down those 3 to 5 things. Step 4, for each item.
Yeah, I think it's good to journaling and writing is really good. Just setting aside paper and just figuring out what's going on in you is always a good thing. And we can mitigate those anxieties usually by putting them down and showing, okay, there's easy solutions here, easy ways. But if we just don't deal with it, it's like psychologically we're having to deal with until we face it. And so I think that's his advice here is face what needs to be done and get it done so that way you don't have to have this lingering anxiety about what you need to do.
Item, ask yourself, if this were the only thing I accomplished today, would I be satisfied with my day? Also ask, will moving this forward make all the other to-dos unimportant or easier to knock off later? That's a nod to Gary Keller, the one thing. So thank you for that, Gary. Step number 5, look only at the items you've answered yes to for at least one of those. Those are the high leverage items, if removed. Number 6, block out at least 2 to 3 hours to focus on one of them for today. 1. Let the rest of the urgent but less important stuff slide. They'll still be there tomorrow. Step number 7.
Remember, this is about productivity strategy to reset, get unstuck, and focus on the right things. So he goes, okay, we need to outline these things and pick the one thing that really is going to matter, the 80-20 rule, the one thing that you can do that takes care of 80% of the stuff. Oh, God, am I saying this backwards? Yeah. So just pick the number one thing that is going to move the mountains forward, if you will. And usually they say tackle that in the morning in this window of opportunity. And it's amazing when you actually apply yourself diligently for that time frame without distraction, how much you can crank out and get done. And usually, like, people say you need 3 of these windows, every single week or every single day, 7 days a week to get ahead. Maybe that's true, but I think what Tim is suggesting here, and we'll find out, is this is really all you need to be as successful as him, is probably my assumption.
And I'm repeating, to be clear, block out at least 2 to 3 hours to focus on one of them for today. This is one block of time, uninterrupted, no distractions, no social media. Cobbling together 10 minutes here and there to add up to 120 minutes does not work. Mm-hmm. Step number 8, if you get distracted or start procrastinating, happens to everybody, don't freak out and downward spiral. Just gently come back to your one to do. Congratulations. That's it. That's the whole thing. This is practical.
There's some people that set 25-minute timers, 20-minute timers, and take a 5-minute break. I love to work in 45-minute increments. So if let's say I'm having a really tough day of needing to do things that I need to do, I'll just set a 45-minute window block. I'll put my phone under something so I absolutely cannot see it, or throw it in a drawer, or it's my timer, so I don't put it in another room. And then I focus on that 45 minutes. Now, if you can do that and then take a 10-minute break and then do another 45-minute window, that tends to work well for me. But you really need to set a 10-minute timer because otherwise that 10-minute break will turn into 20 and 30 and you'll lose your motivation. Other times, like, because I'm starting this reaction channel, I can just do these reaction videos for hours and, 2 or 3 hours just flies by. But I know that's probably not always going to be the case because this is still really new and it's really exciting and all that stuff. But once that goes away, I'll need to kind of use these strategies when I don't want to work or do the work.
Basically, the only way I can create big outcomes despite my never-ending impulse to procrastinate, nap, otherwise fritter away my days with all sorts of bullshit. And it works really, really well. And I've come to learn if I have 10 important things to do in a day, it's 100% certain that nothing important will get done that day. So you got to pick one thing. On the other hand, I can usually handle one must-do item and block out my lesser behaviors for 2 to 3 hours a day.
Okay, hear that again.
One must-do item and block out my lesser behaviors for 2 to 3 hours a day.
Okay, yeah.
In the beginning of the day. That's what works for me.
Yes.
It does not take much to seem superhuman and appear successful to nearly everyone around.
I used to want to work out in the mornings because that was one of the most important things to me, still is. But I realized that if I take time in the morning to do my work for my passion projects and things that I want to build, that's better for me than waiting till after my workout for some reason. So everyone is distinctly different in this regard. So figure out what works best for you. Do you need that extra blood movement and pump? So you get locked in. But I like doing these videos when I, just wake up. I'm still booting up, but it's not a stress thing. Does that make sense? And it really works well for me.
On you, if you learn to single task. Single task. One. In fact, you just need a simple rule. What you do is more important than how you do everything else. And doing something well does not make it important. So material over method, the what over the how. And if you consistently feel the counterproductive need for volume and doing tons of stuff, maybe you should put a few things on Post-it notes, put them in your bathroom. And the first that you can add is being busy is a form of laziness. Lazy thinking and indiscriminate action does not mean that more equals more in the positive sense. Being busy is most often used as a guise for avoiding the few critically important but uncomfortable actions you need to take. And when, despite your best efforts, you feel like you're losing at the game of life, just remember, even the best of the best feel this way sometimes.
Woo!
It's to everybody.
That's true.
When I'm personally in the pit of despair, I recall what iconic writer Kurt Vonnegut said about his process. Highly recommend his books. Amazing guy. And here's the quote. When I write, I feel like an armless, legless man with a crayon in his mouth. So don't overestimate the world and underestimate yourself.
That's really good. Don't overestimate the world and underestimate yourself. I feel like the world programs us and conditions us to underestimate our capability in our own genius. And so when we undervalue that, we almost kind of cut ourselves off from our genius creativity. And you are way more capable than you actually realize, even your brain. Like when I was doing college sports and high school sports, I did way more than I ever thought possible. The only reason is because I had good coaches who told me that I couldn't get away with being lazy. And so, we need to stretch ourselves in these ways. And he's saying it's not easy. We all have cyclical patterns or rhythms. Sometimes, we're up and down. But the bottom line is there's that everyone, even the most successful, battles with these factors. So that's really cool. I don't know, that should encourage you because I especially when I was younger, I always thought that everyone else had something more than me. There was something they understood better than I did. And what it really fundamentally boils down to is the repetitions and actually doing the work required and cutting off the negative Nancy in all of us.
You're better than you think, and you're definitely not alone. We're all in this together, and everyone is fighting a
Hey, that's my line.
battle that you know nothing about.
Yeah, that's so true. We're all fighting a battle that no one knows nothing about. And so, yeah, I think one of the biggest things for me is to plug into things like this. I watch videos like this every day because it helps inspire me to my own depths of greatness. And so I thought as a family, we could watch these videos together. That's why I react to a lot of these, because that's where my heartstrings are pulled. I'll do mindless entertainment as well. But yeah, I think Tim Farriss is great. We'll leave a link in the description. Second person. We'll leave a link in the description below. If there's any videos that you'd like me to react to, you can leave it in the comments below. I'll take a look at it, see if it's something that I would like to react to. And if you feel I've earned it, consider hitting that subscribe button. Consider hitting a thumbs up button. And I appreciate your guys' time and attention. And I will catch you guys on the next one.